A big question I get is, as pitchers, do we rotate the hips like golfers, or do we drive the hips like javelin throwers? Studies show we drive the hips. Back leg propels energy into the proximal segments or the core, and the front leg breaks that and pumps the energy out into the distal segments or into the ball. The reason it's different from, say, golf is when we swing a golf club, both our feet are on the ground. So we can use a lot of the hip musculature to create the rotation as opposed to strictly the ground forces. But the problem with pitchers, we never or rarely ever have both feet on the ground. We pick up our front leg and we shift our weight and transfer our weight to our landing leg. So it goes back leg to front leg. So the ground forces become more effective in creating the rotational power. And the studies show that. Specifically, the back leg is the biggest contributor to the angular forces, the angular rotational energy. Let me show you how that works. So our skeleton Jimmy here, say he's pitching, this back leg is on the ground, okay? This leg is off the ground, he's moving through his stride. What is he going to do to rotate this pelvis is he's going to, when this shin gets linear here, that means when he creates ground forces that way, it'll push in the direction of this shin, which will be that way, which will help bring this back ilium or pelvis around. This will support the process as well. This will turn, and when this femur slightly turns, it'll create a little rotation, as you can see, but it's still not on the ground, so it's not going to create a lot of force. But this back leg's on the ground, well, it's going to drive. And when it drives, it's going to turn the femur down as it drives, and then it's going to push through the femur head to swivel the rotation. So this is where most of the angular forces are going to come from, is the back leg drive pushing the ground force up the tibia through the femur into the head of the femur with the pelvis slightly rotated. So the femur head is pushing on at about a 45-degree angle to now accelerate the rotation of the pelvis. Then this leg will come off the ground or drag. This leg will land. So all this momentum and forces that are moving the pelvis in rotation and the body forward of the center mass forward, when this lands and acts as support and breaks the energy and stabilizes the knee, then that's going to push ground forces up this tibia, up this femur, back against this ilium or pelvis, and that's going to accelerate the rotational forces. So yes, this leg, it will support extending this knee as this rotates, because that pulls the femur head back, but also there's ground forces moving up to really accelerate that process. And you know that this is a really aggressive extension of the knee movement, because you'll see a lot of pitchers hyperextend their knee, those that are more aggressive in breaking or blocking or landing. So it's that contribution of the back leg ground force pushing the back ilium or pelvis around, shifting weight and transferring to the front leg, which creates ground forces to push back against that movement, and then that swivels or creates the angular transfer of energy up the body. So it is a pumping of energy down the mound, a catching and breaking of the front leg to stop that energy as it pushes back into it to force it up the kinetic chain. So it isn't like swinging a golf club and just flexing and extending the hip for rotation. You're actually pumping energy in and out. You're bringing energy down the mound, crashing into the front leg, and pumping the energy out. And if the angles of the femur against the pelvis are in good 45-degree angles, when they push, just like here, this is a 45-degree angle. When he lands, this is a 45-degree angle. When they push, they'll create rotation out of extension or ground forces into the pelvis. So I hope that helps you understand how pitching is a ground force to rotational impulse. And golfing with both feet down can be more of just a flexion, torsion, rotational movement of the pelvis, which can make it look like, or actually act like, two different lower half movements.